Hey, welcome along to this new episode of Hellmouth Hotline. Before we get going here, I would just like to ask you to check out a couple of links for me. There's the official website, coinsagemedia.com, covers everything that we're doing beyond this podcast. And there's a link for, if anybody's interested, suggestion only. People tend to get all uppity whenever you bring this one up. There's Patreon, so the link is patreon.com/coinsagemedia. So with that out of the way, let's get into this week's episode. Alright, savages, we're getting into a little chat about Buffy the Vampire Slayer in this episode with a tasty episode of season 4. It is episode, what are we on the run? We are on episode 15 of season 4 with a little episode entitled This Year's Girl. Fantastic episode, this one. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. It's been a long time since I actually sat down and watched the series from start to finish, and I'm enjoying it this time around. We get Faith back in this episode, and she is, for me, probably one of the most interesting characters in the entire run of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I like those sort of characters that have like that dark background to them, and in this episode you get a heck of a lot of the bad side of Faith in there, but you're seeing the other side of the coin with her as well, where she's seeing herself as the victim, which in a way she has been from the beginning, really, with every mistake she's made. So she's sitting in there with the likes of Angel and Spike as far as the character goes. Love it in this episode. It's a really, really good start to it. It begins with a dream sequence, essentially, and Buffy and Faith, they're putting clean sheets onto a bed in Buffy's house, and Buffy's, I wish I could stay, and Faith says to her, I know there's a lot for you to do before little sis gets here, so this is kind of foreshadowing what's going to be coming in the next series. I think, like, right now, as much as I love these shows and like Buffy and Angel in particular, know that show inside and out, but after season 2 of Buffy, in all fairness, I kind of slipped out of the show for quite a few years for one reason or another. But having said that, I have at one stage watched them all, but only once, so I can't recall which season Buffy's sister shows up in it, but we're jumping ahead of things here. But this episode gives you a foreshadowing of that going to happen. As they're just about finished making up the bed, blood starts to drop onto it, and it's revealed that Buffy has got Faith's knife stuck in Faith's stomach, the knife that, of course, in the prior season she stabbed her in the gut with. And Faith asks her, are you ever going to take this out? And yes, at that we cut to a shot of Faith in the bed in the hospital, of course still in a coma. So we cut over to the Scooby Gang after the opening credits of the episode. Xander, he's trying to get the laser gun working that Buffy had whenever she was set up for a fall by Professor Walsh a couple of episodes earlier. They look, Buffy asks if he can repair it or not, and Xander is, sure, as soon as I get my master's degree in advanced starship technology. So yeah, a lot of geeky pop culture references as per usual. Although she's offering suggestions to help, nothing's working. Giles, he's concerned about Buffy because she's been patrolling non-stop for days without finding Adam, for he's still on the loose. We don't get to see him in this episode, and I wasn't upset at that at all. And in all fairness, in the first watch around of this series in particular was one that didn't really hold my attention. Like the whole initiative thing and the whole Adam thing just didn't keep bringing me back on the original run to check it out. But yes, we're into it again, of course, for this podcast. So yeah, Buffy, she's worried about Riley because she still hasn't heard or seen anything from him since he was injured in the prior episode. Of course, the initiative took him off to a hospital to get sorted out. Xander, whenever they're having all these heartfelt discussions between Willow, Buffy and Giles, Xander, he electrocutes himself with a gun. Nobody notices. We cut over to the hospital Riley's in. He wakes up and he tries to leave, but the two other members of his group, Forrest and Graham, try to talk him out of it, but he doesn't change his mind. Off he goes. Back at the hospital, Fifth, while in her coma, we get into another dream sequence of her, and she dreams she's having a picnic with the mayor. Of course, the guy turned into the huge snake at the end of the last series. At which point Buffy arrives and murders him, and she again has this knife that Fifth had in the prior season, and then threatens Fifth with it. Fifth runs, crawls away. On patrol, we cut over to Buffy then in the real world. Buffy, Willow and Xander, they find this demon strung up to a tree. You know, he's like his two arms are up in the air, tied up into the top branches, and his two legs is pulled apart, tied around the trunks of the tree, and his whole insides is gutted and pulled out of him. Yeah, this is another one of Adam's experiments and how things work. So he's just fighting people now and gutting them to see how the anatomy of a thing works. Back at Xander's basement, Buffy, she's explaining her plan for getting Riley out of the hospital, which involves fighting her way into the initiative. And she comes up with all these big plans about, get this blaster working, we'll get pure force, and we'll go down the elevator shaft, I'll get my way down there, break in, fight my way and find him. At which point he turns up in the basement, explaining that he just simply walked out of the initiative. We cut back over again, of course, to Faith. She's still in the hospital, still in her coma. She's still in the dream, and she's running through the cemetery while Buffy pursues her. So you're seeing the inner conflict of Faith, and of course, the reason she's in a coma in the first place is because of her prior final showdown with Buffy, which she came off the worst, so she's having nightmares about Buffy chasing her and killing her and whatnot. So Fifth falls into an open grave, and Buffy, she's walking in the dream with the knife in her hand. She's almost like the Terminator hunting Fifth down, and you get this tasty shot of down and towards the grave, and Fifth's down in there and she's staring up out. We get a wide angle of Buffy jumping onto the grave, and you hear a little bit of commotion in there. So obviously this is the point in the dream where Faith normally gets killed in the dream. Then you see these two hands coming up, and Faith crawls her way out of the grave, this time having, in her own subconscious, fought Buffy and won. So she's killed Buffy in the grave. She gets up out of the grave, the rain starts, and then snap, she wakes up in the hospital. We cut over to Riley and Buffy. They're talking about their jobs, working to fight the forces of evil. Buffy tells him that he's got a choice on what he does with his life. And, you've got a heartfelt moment between the two of them. She fills him in on the whole history of her being part of the council, then leaving the council and whatnot. And if I can do it, you can do it too. The whole rah, you can do it sort of a thing. We cut over to the hospital. There's a detective named Clark, talks with the members of staff. They find a girl beaten up and stripped. I kind of jumped over a part of the episode there. Of course, Fifth wakes up, gets out of the bed, and comes across this girl who's lost in the hospital, asking for directions. And she starts asking how to get to graduation at Sunnydale High, and the girl explains, the school's not even there anymore. It was a tragedy. The mayor and the principal, a whole load of students were killed and whatnot. So she's beaten, stripped. Faith takes her clothes, leaves the hospital, of course. So eventually the police are called, and they find a girl beaten and stripped. No Faith. And the nurse that's filling them in on what happened, I come 8 o'clock, my usual rounds to check on her. She wasn't here, haven't touched anything. This is what it is. They get the report of this girl if they go to check it out. So she makes a phone call and asks for a team to be sent. So this woman, this nurse, is obviously working, like, you do get it by the end of this episode, but if you know the show at all and the whole structure of it, this woman's working on behalf of the Watchers Council. So if she's walking around Sunnydale, she's looking at all the things that have changed. She visits the high school. That's burned to a crisp, and she ends up outside Giles' house, and the Scooby Gang's on there, and she's eavesdropping on what they're talking about. Their plans to attack Adam, and Buffy gets the phone call to inform her that Faith's awake and on the loose. So they talk about how they're going to deal with her, but conclude that they'll have to see what condition she's in at first. At this point, Riley, he starts questioning who Faith is. Buffy, being Buffy, is, at the end of the day, whether I like it or not, Faith's my responsibility. Maybe she's still evil, maybe she's still psychotic, or maybe she's sorry and hiding somewhere and afraid. So she's, again, looking at the optimistic side of the whole situation. On campus the next day, Buffy admits to Willow that she gave Riley an edited version of her history with Faith, and mostly leaving out the parts that involved Angel. So we get a comment on him in this episode. They then talk about how to find Faith, only to find that she's actually on campus waiting for him, and her and Buffy then talk about everything that's happened. Buffy tries to persuade her to give herself up, but Faith refuses and instead promises revenge. And it's the whole, coming head to head sort of thing, and laying down the lines of combat, more or less, in this episode. The police arrive at this point, and they have a brief fight before Faith runs. Buffy tries to chase her down, but she loses her after Faith jumps a wall. We get to see Tara in this episode. Willow brings her in to help her search for Faith, and they have a moment there, and you're starting to see the feelings on Tara's side starting to come out more and more every time she shows up. Xander and Giles, they're out searching the streets for Faith. And Adam, at this point, they've got the laser gun working again. Riley sorted that in 2 seconds. Instead, they encounter Spike, and they automatically go into the whole thing about, as soon as they meet him, see who he is, they hear this noise down an alleyway. Of course, they turn on the laser gun, ready for a fight with Adam or Faith. Spike steps out of the shadows, lighting a cigarette, and they automatically go into, it's only Spike, sort of thing. He's got the chip on the head now, he can't hurt anybody. So they drop out of the fences, and they pretty much tell him everything that's going on with the rogue Slayer and whatnot. And he's like, this sounds dangerous. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll keep my eye out for her, and when I find her, I'll tell her where all you guys are at, and then I'll stand back and watch her kill all of you. At which point they're speechless, and he's like, are you ever going to get it that just because I can't bite anybody doesn't mean I'm not willing to send a rogue cannon your way? And of course he stamps off at this stage. So we get over to Faith once more. She's approached by this demon in an alley, and he tries to give her this box, or this gift, that he says, I've got something from an old friend, but Faith just grabs him, puts him in a headlock, breaks his neck, and she takes the package off him, and she breaks into a store to watch the videotape. that was sent from the mayor on one of the VCRs. There's something new for you if you're a younger listener. She got a videotape, one of those big chunky cassette tapes that has a video on it, and you had to get a VCR to watch it on. The mayor recorded this just after she fell into her coma, and he tells her that if she's watching it, then he must be dead and it's planned to destroy Sunnydale's field. He then regretfully tells her that the world no longer has a place for her, and it's only a matter of time before, she's dead. But then tells her that the enclosed box contains a special gift that will allow her to go out with a bang. So I was looking it up. It's called the Draconian Catra. So that's what it is. It's like a little, we'll just call it a knuckle duster. It's over a couple of fingers over the thumb. There's a little thing in there, the palm of the hand sort of thing. It's more like one of those, that's like a fancy electronic buzzer that you used to see back in the 80s, and where somebody would shake their hands and go zzz. So yeah, Fifth then goes off to Buffy's house, punches out Joyce, and keeping her captive, Fifth notes from the piled up letters that have been a while since Buffy's visited home, and starts to go off the deep end as she picks up a knife and angrily states that Buffy knew she was on the loose, didn't even think of it to check on her own mother. So she's getting into the whole thing, the world's leaving us all behind. It's left you behind. Your daughter's not even speaking to you, sort of thing. And kind of putting the two of them into the same boat. So, as evil as Fifth is, and as psychotic as she is throughout this episode, you are, through all of it, really seeing a kind of a tender side to her as well. Because you're seeing the hurt, and she's gone down a road and she just doesn't know how to turn and come back from it. Elijah Dushku, that plays Fifth, did it so well in this episode. Fantastic. Again, I love those sorts of characters, and she does it in a big bad way on this one. Fantastic. So of course Joyce, she's every Fifth, and every Fifth. She fully believes that Buffy is going to kill you, more or less. She tells Fifth that at one point. And yeah, so again, Fifth's pushing it home that, Buffy's not even interested in checking up on her own mother, knowing that I'm out here and whatnot. But Buffy, in a prior scene, had said that Fifth's going to go after everybody she cares about. And then that's the last we see of Buffy before this here. So she, of course, first person she's going to check on is her own mother. She breaks through the window right behind Fifth, and she goes, "Hello, Mum," and Joyce is like, "Hello, dear," hello, Buffy, whatever it was. The two Slayers start to have a final confrontation, and the fight goes through almost every room in the house. Joyce immediately gets on 911, calls the police. We cut over to Giles, gets to his apartment. He comes in, the lights aren't working, but a lamp is then turned on, and three men with briefcases are there. One of them says, "Hello, Rupert," causing Giles to realise that they're from the Watchers Council. So, you know this was going to happen. Back at Buffy's mother's house, the fight between Buffy and Fifth gets more intense. Like, the house is getting destroyed at this point. You can hear the police turning up. You see through the windows of the sitting room, you can see the flashing lights of the cars pulling up. At this point, Fifth pulls out the gift that the mayor left for her, puts it under her hand, then grabs Buffy's hand in like a shaking hands kind of a motion. Light froze through them both. After a few seconds, the two of them sort of look at each other in confusion, and Buffy punches Fifth, knocks her unconscious, leaving her to be arrested. Buffy then smashes this metal thing that the mayor had left for Fifth, saying it was some sort of weapon, but it didn't work. And she looks down at Fifth. Fifth's out cold. Joyce then asks Buffy if she's okay, and she simply responds, 5 by 5. And she has this little grin on her face when she does it. Fantastic episode. Like, at the end of the episode, you know exactly what's happened in this moment. 5x5 being Faith's standard line whenever somebody asks how she's doing. It's like, oh yeah, 5x5. So Buffy saying that's the end of the episode. Unless you're thick, you're going to get what's exactly is happening in this moment. The mayor left Faith something that can make her switch bodies with the other person. So Faith's body is out cold on the floor with Buffy's consciousness in it. Buffy is there with Faith's consciousness in it. Now, I do know how this plays out, but as I say, it's been a long time since I actually sat and watched the show, start to finish, but loving every moment of it this time. Nice little change of pace for this season. I have to be honest with you, I did say it earlier in the episode that the first time around watching this on TV, like the whole initiative thing and the whole Adam storyline just kind of pulled me out of the series. It just didn't keep me glued to the screen. So getting a 2-part episode with Faith coming back into it was a nice bit of fresh air for this point of the season. And of course we do I'm going to jump ahead of the game here if I go any further into it, but fantastic episode. I'm loving it, and we're going to be doing as many of these podcasts as we can moving forward. I'm very, very disjointed in the recording of podcasts lately, but that has to change. So all been well, you'll get 3 episodes a week from here on in. Right, that's going to do it, guys. Until the next episode, whatever you're doing, stay safe, and I'll talk to you all then. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you so much for listening.